Good evening to whoever is watching me on the Fly on the Wall performance page. Thanks to Isabel Kenyon, the editor at Fly on the Wall, for inviting me to read here this evening. Isabel has been a wonderful supporter of my work, and I'm very grateful to her for taking the risk on me and publishing my chapbook, The Woman with an Owl Tattoo. I submitted it to Isabel in November 2018, and it was the first time I ever submitted a chapbook to anybody, and Isabel was great. She took it and took the risk on a relatively new poet. What made it more special was the fact that the chapbook is about my coming out journey, and again she took the risk on publishing it. So thanks very much to Isabel. So I'm going to read some poems from my chapbook, The Woman with an Owl Tattoo, which is about my coming out journey, about my growth since the ending of my marriage 10 years ago to discovering my sexuality and then coming out in midlife. So that's what the chapbook is all about. So the first poem I'm going to read tonight is Tawny Owl. It's one of the first poems in the collection, and it's about the loneliness I experienced in my marriage. Tawny Owl. Each night after my husband fell asleep and the moon was full, I'd gaze from the bedroom window at the tawny owl perched on the barn's roof. Moving a hand up my thigh, I dream of laying my head on her feathered mound. Moving my other hand down my arched neck, I dream of holding her breast in my palm, her breath moistening my desert skin. Sometimes I open the window to listen to her melody of taroos before husband shoved himself inside me. In daylight, I milked cows, pulled eggs from bottoms of stubborn hens, fed motherless lambs. One November morning, I found my owl, her limp body floating face down in the duck pond. I cawed like an old crow. And the next poem I'm going to read is called Coco, and it's based on a Celtic myth where the warrior Coco goes to a chieftain's house and he's faced by a big hound, guard dog, and he's afraid for his life, so he kills the guard dog, and then he takes the guard dog's place to guard the chieftain's compound until a new dog is raised to do the job. So I could see parallels in my own life where I had to kill something effectively. It was the ending of my marriage, so I could save myself. And it's actually 10 years last week, 10-year anniversary of the ending of my marriage. So it's particularly appropriate that I would read this poem today. Coco. In midlife, I grew into my childhood hero. I stood in the hound's shadow, its paws like circular saw blades, poised, ready to maul. I gripped my hurley in one hand, sliotar in the other, wished it was only a mythical dog I had to kill. The hound's jaws were prized apart by verbal battles and eggshell silences. Its hot breath raised blisters on my skin. I whacked the sliotar down its gullet, watched as the ball dragged the entrails of my marriage out the rear end. I grabbed his hind legs, smashed the body against a concrete wall, became sole guardian of the vulnerable, the ones I believed hound would always protect. So, yeah, it was a very difficult anniversary this year. And even though you leaving the marriage is the best thing I could have done, and so many good things have happened, but it's still kind of that loss of the dream of the happy family. Anyway, moving on to something a bit lighter in tone. This one is called History of My Sexual Encounters. And all penises in this poem are fictitious. Any resemblance to real penises, dying or dead, is purely coincidental. A Bristol boy ripped my hymen. Penis like a twister ice lolly, always melted too quickly, and never quite filled me. The Aussie naval officer, penis as long and bent as the steel arches of Sydney Harbour Bridge. I jumped before he stood to salute. The bushman in Kakadu, penis tasted like a burnt kangaroo steak. Said he hates when the Sheilas don't come. Takes a bit longer than 5 minutes, bucko. The dub I met in Singapore, penis slick as tiger beer easing down a parched throat. He wanted me to go down, south on a boat to Darwin. I flew north to Kathmandu. And finally, the Wexford wanker. Held his penis as if it were a fishing rod. Caught my clitoris, reeled me in. Took me 7 years to escape his hook. And in stark contrast to that poem, the next poem I'm going to read is my favourite poem in the collection, and it's called Mná na hÉireann. Yes, the penis poem. And this, as I said, it's in stark contrast to the last poem, because it's all about celebrating the joy of making love with a woman. And I wrote it from the point of view of a woman making love with a woman, but I was actually at a reading recently and a man came up to me and said, I can so relate to that poem. So it actually, you know, it's about making love with a woman, whether it's a man or a woman. Anyway, here it is. Mná na hÉireann. To die not having known the frenzy of making love with a woman is to live without ever jumping over the bar of your crib. How could you not want to watch a woman fling her underwear on your bedroom floor, present you with soft skin for your nails and teeth to score like blades on dough? How could you not want to feel your edges slip into her hollows like a spoon folding flour into cake batter? How could you not want to hear her whimper crescendo to a jungle roar while your fingers move inside her? How could you not want a denouement to your play, when secret stories leak onto ivory sheets, tease tongues and start the sequel? How could you not want to drag a woman to bed at 7 on a Saturday evening, rise at 2 on Sunday afternoon, sleep deprived and smelling like a marathon runner, race outside to tackle weedy flower beds, gleeful that soil will not rest in your clipped fingernails? So you can see why that's my favourite poem in the collection. I was at a reading in November and a woman came up to me and she said, oh, you know, you want me to make, I'd love to leave my husband and have sex with a woman after listening to that poem. And I thought, yeah, it's my mission accomplished. Not that I want to break up any marriage. Okay, so the next poem then is called To My 50-Year-Old Self. And this came about by, I read a prompt somewhere, I can't remember where, but anyway, the prompt was to look at yourself in the mirror and write a poem about what you see. So me being me, and given that I like to write about the body, the female body in particular, I looked at myself naked and wrote what I saw. So here we go. To my 50-year-old self. Unclasp your bra, let it fall. Ease your comfy cotton knickers down your legs. Look at your naked self, untouched by another, for 7 years. Hold your breasts. Watch them spill out of your hands. Run your thumbs along the curved water slide of your spine. Massage the hollow between your hips, smooth as a leaf in late summer. Cradle your belly. Admire the way it protrudes over greying hair, framed by the Y of your thighs. Play a sonata on your skin. Stiffen your nipples. Close your eyes. Dive into the dream of the fisherman's wife. So that's celebrating the middle-aged woman's body. And the next poem I'm going to read is called Frisian. And I think writing this poem, I was remembering an image I had as a child when I watched my father pull a calf from a labouring cow. And I wanted to use that to talk about my rebirth. And no matter how difficult and bloody it has been, it's also brought great joy. So this is called Frisian. The new vet's perfume cut through the muck in the shed. She pulled on shoulder-length gloves, reached inside my best dairy cow, up through the birth canal. The animal roared like a chainsaw until in a whoosh of blood a Frisian calf slipped out. After the calf had suckled, I asked the new vet in for tea, released my copper-highlighted hair from its ponytail while she washed. The first time we made love, her hands delivered me from my labour days. Like my Frisian calf, I landed on sweet-smelling straw. Thank you. And I'm just going to read 2 more poems. I'm keeping it short tonight. And this one is called No More Fairy Tales. And this poem really is a subversion, I suppose, of the traditional fairy tale where, you know, it's usually the prince that goes on adventures and save the princess while the poor princess has to sit at home and wait to be saved. And I used to hate those fairy tales as a child. So I wrote one. I wrote my version of a fairy tale. It's called No More Fairy Tales. Tattooist inked the skin on my abdomen. A green dragon emerged, lounging in a balloon's wicker basket. He exhaled hot air upwards. The needle's scratchy pain subsided as the balloon inflated and floated towards my breast. Your tales said dragons were dangerous. Mine kept me afloat in skies of dark dodgemed clouds and white water rapid rain. When Tattooist finished, the dragon had swallowed an ex's once indelible name. In my story, I saved the princess. She tickles my balloon, palms the basket, licks my dragon's amber breath, without guarantee of a happy ever anything. And the last poem I'm going to read is the second last poem in the chapbook, and it's called Self-Love. And the chapbook kind of goes from kind of the ending of my marriage and that low point in my life, and then it travels through the whole coming to terms with my sexuality and finding new love and then that love ending. And then coming, I suppose, to the realisation that really the most important thing is to love yourself and accept yourself. And it was truly the love of others and support of others, particularly when I was coming out, that really helped me to love myself and to accept myself for who I am. And I wrote this poem one day in the kitchen, looking at myself in the kitchen mirror, or not the kitchen mirror, in the kitchen window, as you do, or do not. So it's called Self-Love. If you feel your heart leap when you glimpse your face in the kitchen window, admire the faint image that is you. Feast on your beauty. Don't think of self-love as a crumb you must blow from your table. Think of it as the yeast that will develop your dough. Think of how it will nourish you to rise again, again, and again. So there you go, short and sweet. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching me on a Friday night. And just to let you know as well that I'm reading in a Poetry Pride Parade on the Cultivating Voices Facebook page on Sunday evening, and I'm really, really excited about that because it's the first time I've ever participated in a Pride event, and this is Pride Month. So it's featuring a whole range of American and Irish and UK LGBT plus poets. So if you have nothing better to be doing on Sunday, it starts at 7 p.m. British Standard Time. Pop in and I'll be there again. I'll be reading more poems. So again, thanks very much, and particularly thanks to Isabel. She's just a wonderful, wonderful person to work with, and has definitely made my first publishing experience a very positive one. And I'd encourage anybody that has any manuscripts lying around to think about sending them in when they have their next submission period. So there you go. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of your Friday evening and enjoy the weekend. God bless and take care.